Colorado has the highest average elevation of any state in America, over 6,800 feet. It contains 58 peaks above 14,000 feet, more than any other state. Most people picture ski slopes, mountain towns, maybe a craft brewery with a view of the Rockies. But Colorado also has sand dunes taller than anything in the Sahara, a nuclear-proof bunker buried inside a mountain, a chicken that lived for 18 months without a head, and a town where throwing a snowball was technically a crime until a 9-year-old kid got the law changed. This state is so strange that even when the facts sound completely made up, every single one of them is verified. These are the most insane true facts about Colorado, and some of them will change how you think about this place. Let's start with the one that sounds the most impossible. In September 1945, a farmer named Lloyd Olson walked out to his yard in Fruita, Colorado to butcher a rooster for dinner. The bird's name was Mike. Olson grabbed the axe, lined up the swing, and brought it down. The head came off, but Mike did not die. He didn't even fall over. The blade had missed the jugular vein and left most of the brainstem completely intact, just enough neural tissue to keep the body running. Mike stood up, shook himself off, and started walking around the yard like nothing had happened. He tried to peck for food with a neck stump. He attempted to preen his feathers. He tucked what was left of his neck under his wing and tried to sleep. Olson watched this headless rooster stumble through the dirt and made a decision that most farmers would not have made. Instead of finishing the job, he decided to keep Mike alive. He fed the bird with an eyedropper, dropping grain and water directly into the open esophagus. And it worked. Mike survived not just for days, but for weeks, then months. Word spread through town, then through the county, then through the entire country. Olson took Mike on a national sideshow tour. People paid 25 cents to see the headless chicken in person. At his peak, Mike was valued at $10,000. In 1946 dollars, Life magazine featured him. Scientists from the University of Utah examined him and confirmed what everyone had trouble believing. The bird was genuinely alive, genuinely headless, and genuinely healthy enough to gain weight. Mike went from 2.5 pounds to nearly 8. He finally died in March 1947, 18 months after losing his head. The cause was almost absurdly mundane. He choked on a kernel of corn in a motel room in Phoenix, and Olson had left the feeding eyedropper at the previous show. Today, the town of Fruita holds an annual festival called Mike the Headless Chicken Day. There are races, games, and a whole celebration built around a bird that simply refused to accept its own death. A town built a legacy around a rooster that wouldn't quit. That story sounds insane, but the next one might be even harder to believe because Colorado has a desert landscape that looks like it was ripped straight out of North Africa. The Great Sand Dunes sit in the San Luis Valley, pressed against the base of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. Star Dune, the tallest, rises over 750 feet, making these the tallest sand dunes in all of North America. Not the tallest in Colorado, the tallest on the continent. And they are surrounded on nearly every side by snow-capped peaks that climb past 13,000 feet. The dunes exist because of a trick of geography that has been running for hundreds of thousands of years. Prevailing winds sweep across the San Luis Valley floor, picking up sand from the Rio Grande floodplain and ancient lake beds that dried up long ago. That sand-laden wind blows northeast until it slams into the wall of the Sangre de Cristos. It has nowhere to go. The mountains act as a trap, concentrating millennia of wind-blown sediment into a single towering field. When storms reverse direction and blow back the other way, the sand does not scatter, it just piles higher. The result is a landscape that looks photoshopped. Massive golden dunes rolling toward the horizon with alpine peaks directly behind them, close enough that you could hike from hot sand to snowfield in a single afternoon. And here is the detail that makes it feel truly surreal. Medano Creek runs along the base of the dunes, and in late spring, it creates something called surge flow, rhythmic pulses of water that wash across the sand in small waves, like a beach. You are standing on what looks and feels like an ocean shoreline, complete with waves lapping at your feet. Except you are at 8,000 feet elevation in the middle of the Rocky Mountains. No ocean for 1,000 miles. The sand beneath you is older than most civilizations. The creek is fed by snowmelt from peaks you can see from where you're standing. It is one of the most disorienting places in America. A landscape that breaks every assumption you have about what Colorado is supposed to look like. If you like learning about the weirdest things hiding in plain sight across America, subscribe. I cover stories like this every week. If Colorado can hide a desert inside its mountains, it probably should not surprise anyone that the United States military decided to hide an entire command center inside one. Cheyenne Mountain Complex sits just outside Colorado Springs, buried under 2,000 feet of solid granite. It was built in the early 1960s at the white-hot peak of the Cold War, with one purpose: to survive a direct nuclear strike. Construction crews blasted out nearly 700,000 tons of rock to hollow out a cavern large enough to hold a small city block. The facility is not just dug into the rock, it is suspended inside it. The entire complex sits on more than 1,300 massive steel springs, each one weighing about 1,000 pounds. The buildings inside do not touch the cave walls or floor directly. They float on those springs like a ship on water. If a nuclear warhead detonated directly overhead, those springs would absorb and dissipate the shockwave, letting the structure flex instead of shatter. The complex was designed to withstand a 30 megaton blast, roughly 2,000 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Inside, it houses NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command. NORAD tracks every object flying through North American airspace: missiles, aircraft, satellites, space debris. And yes, every Christmas Eve, they also track Santa Claus. That part is real. The NORAD Santa Tracker started in 1955 when a Sears department store ad printed a phone number for kids to call Santa, but misprinted the number. The calls went to the NORAD command center instead. The officer on duty decided to play along and give the kids updates on Santa's position. They have done it every year since. The complex has its own power plant, its own water reservoir, and blast doors that weigh 25 tons each and can seal in seconds. During the Cold War, this was arguably the single most important defensive installation in the Western Hemisphere, the place where the decision to launch a nuclear counterattack would have been made. Today, it still operates as a backup command center, buried inside a mountain in Colorado, quietly watching the skies. So Colorado hid a nuclear bunker inside a mountain. But some people believe the government hid something even stranger underneath Denver's airport. Denver International Airport is the largest airport in the United States by land area, 53 square miles. That is bigger than the entire island of Manhattan. It opened in 1995, 16 months behind schedule and roughly $2 billion over budget. The construction delays were bad enough, but what really launched the conspiracy theories were the design choices. Start outside. The first thing you see when you approach is a 32-foot-tall blue horse sculpture with glowing red eyes. Locals call it Blucifer. The statue was created by artist Luis Jimenez, and here is where the story takes a dark turn. A section of the sculpture fell on Jimenez during installation and severed an artery in his leg. He bled to death in his studio. The horse that now greets millions of travelers every year killed the man who made it. Walk inside and the strangeness continues. Murals by artist Leo Tanguma cover the walls of the terminal. They depict scenes of war, environmental devastation, grieving children, and a figure in a gas mask wielding a sword. Other panels show children from around the world gathered in peace. The intended message was about overcoming conflict and environmental destruction, but conspiracy theorists saw something different entirely. They saw depictions of a new world order, secret societies, and an apocalyptic agenda hidden in plain sight inside a public airport. Then there are the tunnels. Vast underground passages run beneath the terminal, originally built for an automated baggage system that never worked properly. The system was abandoned, but the tunnels remained, massive, empty, and unexplained to the average traveler walking above them. Denver could have ignored all of this. Instead, the airport leaned into it. During renovations, they installed signs near construction zones that read, "Construction? Or is it a cover-up for the underground bunker?" A gargoyle statue peeks out of a suitcase in one terminal, winking at passersby. The airport gift shops sell conspiracy-themed merchandise. DIA took decades of paranoia and suspicion and turned it into a brand. You can buy a t-shirt about the secret underground lair on your way to Gate B47. Whether the conspiracies are real is beside the point. Denver International Airport became the only airport in the world that actively markets its own conspiracy theories, and it works. Denver's airport conspiracy is famous, but there is a valley in southern Colorado where the strange sightings are not a marketing campaign, and the people who live there will tell you that without blinking. The San Luis Valley stretches 122 miles through southern Colorado, sitting at 7,500 feet elevation and ringed on all sides by mountains. It is one of the largest alpine valleys in the world. It is also one of the most active UFO hotspots in the United States. Residents have reported unexplained lights, unusual aerial phenomena, and cattle mutilations going back decades. The sightings are not occasional. They are persistent enough that the valley has developed an entire culture around them. In 2000, a local rancher named Judy Messeline was struggling to keep her cattle operation alive. Looking for any way to bring in extra income, she built a small observation platform on her property and called it the UFO Watchtower. It was mostly a joke, a roadside curiosity to attract tourists passing through. But something happened that she did not expect. People started coming, and they started seeing things. Over 200 sightings have been reported from the tower since it opened. Visitors describe orbs of light moving in patterns that do not match aircraft, sudden flashes above the mountains, and objects that hover and then vanish. The valley also sits above a massive underground aquifer and has unusual geomagnetic properties that some researchers have tried to study, though no conclusive explanation has ever been published. Whether you believe any of it or not, the cultural reality is undeniable. The San Luis Valley has built an entire identity around the unexplained, and the watchtower that started as a rancher's joke has been running for 25 years. Colorado is a state where even the laws can be stranger than fiction. In the town of Severance, Colorado, population roughly 5,000, it was technically illegal to throw a snowball. The town's municipal code classified snowballs as missiles under a broader ordinance that banned throwing any projectile within city limits. Nobody enforced it. Nobody even thought about it. The law just sat there on the books, a relic that no adult had ever bothered to challenge. Then, in 2018, a 9-year-old boy named Dane Best decided it was absurd. He did his research, he prepared a formal argument, and he stood up in front of the Severance Town Board and made his case. Kids should be allowed to have snowball fights. The board voted unanimously to repeal the ban. Dane walked outside and threw the first legal snowball in Severance's history. The story went international. BBC, Time, NPR, all of them covered a 4th grader who accomplished something that generations of adults never attempted. He saw a ridiculous law, took it seriously enough to fight it, and won. But Colorado's strangest superlatives are not just legal oddities. Some of them reach 1,000 feet underground. The Mother Spring in the town of Pagosa Springs is the deepest geothermal hot spring on Earth, verified by Guinness World Records. Engineers lowered a plumb line into the vent and measured it at over 1,002 feet deep, nearly the height of the Eiffel Tower, straight down into the Earth. The water that rises from that depth emerges at roughly 144 degrees Fahrenheit, steaming visibly in the mountain air even on warm days. The spring produces more than 264 gallons per minute, a relentless flow of superheated water from a geothermal system so deep that geologists still debate its full structure and how far the source actually extends. The indigenous Ute people considered this spring sacred for centuries. They called it Pagosa, meaning healing waters, and used it long before European settlers arrived in the region. Legend holds that rival tribes would declare temporary truces near the spring, recognizing it as a place that belonged to no one and everyone. Most hot springs are shallow features, fed by water that circulates a few hundred feet below the surface. This one is different. The water you soak in has traveled from over 1,000 feet beneath the Earth, heated by forces deep in the planet's crust, rising under pressure through cracks in the rock until it breaks the surface in a small Colorado town. You sit in a pool and feel warmth that originated nearly 1/5 of a mile below your feet. Colorado's highest point is Mount Elbert at 14,440 feet. Most people know that, but here is the fact that reframes everything. Colorado's lowest point, the very bottom of the entire state, along the Arickaree River where it trickles toward Kansas, sits at 3,315 feet. That is still higher than the highest point in 18 other US states. Colorado's floor would be a summit almost everywhere else in America. That single fact captures what makes this place so strange. Colorado operates on a different scale entirely. Its extremes, geographic, cultural, legal, military, biological, are so far outside the American norm that the truth consistently sounds like fiction. A chicken that lived 18 months without a head. A desert hidden inside a mountain range. A nuclear bunker suspended on steel springs beneath 2,000 feet of granite. An airport that markets its own conspiracy theories. A valley where UFO sightings have been cataloged for decades. A 9-year-old who took on a town's legal code and won. The deepest hot spring ever measured on the surface of the Earth. Every single one of those is verified, documented, and real. Colorado does not just have insane facts. It is a state where the baseline for normal is already so extreme that nothing sounds impossible, and somehow none of it is. If you want to see how geography drew similar invisible lines through other states, check out one of the recommended videos on screen, and if you have not already, subscribe.